Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Behind me, I have 3 documents from the DOJ production that are emblematic of the massive failure of the DOJ to comply with the Epstein Files Transparency Act. To my right is an email that was sent by the victim's lawyers to the DOJ. It was a list of names not to redact, a list of names not to release. What did the DOJ do with this email? They released this email in the document production. Literally the worst thing you could do to the survivors, you did. And they're getting phone calls. A lot of these people didn't want to be known. And we know you touched the document because you redacted one name and you redacted the lawyer's name, but you left the survivor's name there. The next document I want to show you, that was in the title, the victim's survivors' names, all right? The title of this one is Child Sex Trafficking, Co-Conspirators, fully redacted. And by the way, I'm going to unredact them here. Les Wexner is in this. Now, your deputy attorney general said, oh, well, he appears hundreds of times in the files, but he doesn't appear in this file until I forced you to release it, where he's listed as a co-conspirator, not to tax evasion, but to child sex trafficking. Not to prostitution, not to money laundering, child sex trafficking. And then finally, what we have here is the third exhibit that I have is emblematic of the FD 302 release. These are the documents that we need that you're holding on to and over-redacting because they have the names of the men who are implicated. How do we know? Because the survivors gave testimony to the FBI, and it's in there. And what happens when you go to the portal at the DOJ to look at what's behind this redaction? Another redaction. So we can't even see them. And then there's some of these files you've pulled down from the website that we will never see because we can't search the redactions. So I have several questions for you. Who's responsible? Are you able to track who in your organization made this massive failure and released the victims' names? Are you able to track who it was that obscured Les Wexner's name as a co-conspirator in an FBI document? Do you have that kind of accountability?
I believe Wexner's name was listed more than 4,000 times.
Yeah, I already told you that. This is where he's listed as a co-conspirator.
Can I finish my answer? Come on, let me finish my answer. We corrected that within 40 minutes. He was already, you're acting like everybody's trying to cover up Wexner's name.
Reclaiming my time.
I'm going to answer this question.
Reclaiming my time.
Mr.
Chairman.
This isn't how this works.
Can I have my time back? Mr. Chairman.
Tonight, what started as a routine congressional hearing exploded into one of the most chaotic confrontations Washington has seen in years. Shouting, accusations, claims of a decades-long cover-up, and at the center of it all, the Epstein files. A congressman standing before the nation holding up documents from the Department of Justice, accusing federal officials of hiding evidence, exposing victims, and protecting powerful elites. The room instantly turned hostile. And within minutes, the hearing completely spiraled out of control. Red-handed, that's a cover-up. You're hiding the names. This wasn't just another political argument. This was a full-scale collision between lawmakers, the Department of Justice, and one of the darkest scandals in modern American history. The hearing opened with a direct attack against the DOJ's handling of the Epstein files. The congressman held up 3 separate documents and called them proof of what he described as a massive failure by the Department of Justice to comply with transparency laws connected to Jeffrey Epstein's network. And then came the first explosive allegation. According to the congressman, one of the released DOJ documents contained the names of Epstein survivors, women who never wanted their identities publicly exposed. He claimed victim lawyers had specifically sent instructions identifying names that should not be released. But somehow, those names appeared anyway, and the accusation became even more serious when he argued that the DOJ had clearly edited the document themselves, because one name was redacted. The lawyer's name was redacted, yet the survivor names remained visible. To critics watching the hearing, it looked catastrophic. The congressman accused the DOJ of doing the worst possible thing to victims who had already endured years of trauma. He claimed survivors were now receiving phone calls after their identities became public. The tension in the room immediately escalated. But that was only the beginning. Then came the second document. And this is where the hearing truly detonated. The congressman held up another file allegedly connected to child sex trafficking co-conspirators. Almost everything on the page was blacked out, except for one name, Les Wexner, the billionaire businessman long connected to Epstein. The congressman argued that Wexner's name had originally been hidden inside the DOJ release and only appeared after pressure from investigators demanding transparency. Then came the line that shocked the hearing room. He's listed as a co-conspirator, not for tax evasion, not for money laundering, but for child sex trafficking. The atmosphere instantly turned toxic. The Attorney General pushed back aggressively. She argued that Wexner's name already appeared thousands of times throughout the files and denied there was any intentional cover-up. But the congressman wasn't backing down. He interrupted repeatedly, accusing the DOJ of hiding information until they were caught red-handed. The hearing dissolved into overlapping voices. "Reclaiming my time. Let me answer. You're covering this up." The chairman struggled to regain control. At one point, lawmakers were shouting over each other so loudly that the hearing became nearly impossible to follow. And then the Attorney General fired back personally, calling the accusations political theater, accusing the congressman of exploiting the issue for attention. And suddenly the hearing shifted from the Epstein files themselves into an all-out political war. The Attorney General accused him of suffering from Trump derangement syndrome. The congressman immediately erupted. Members started demanding the chairman restore speaking time. Others demanded answers about why files remained redacted. The room became complete chaos. But the biggest moment was still ahead. The congressman then focused on what are known as FD 302 forms, internal FBI witness interview documents. According to him, these forms contain testimony from survivors naming powerful men connected to Epstein. But when investigators try to access those names, they encounter more redactions. Black bars over black bars. Entire sections hidden from public view. He accused the DOJ of intentionally over-redacting documents to protect politically connected individuals. And then he made perhaps the biggest claim of the hearing. This cover-up spans decades. Not one administration. Not two. Decades. Republicans. Democrats. Bush. Obama. Trump. Biden. According to the congressman, the Epstein scandal has become larger than Watergate itself. Because in his words, every administration had pieces of the truth, yet the full story never became public. The Attorney General attempted to calm the situation by insisting there was no credible information proving some of the allegations being made during the hearing. But that response only fueled more outrage. Critics argued that the DOJ kept hiding behind technical language while refusing to fully release documents the public has demanded for years. And then the hearing took another unexpected turn. The Attorney General accused the congressman of hypocrisy over unrelated legislation involving AI deepfake pornography laws. The room erupted again. At this point, lawmakers weren't even discussing documents anymore. They were attacking each other personally. The chairman repeatedly announced, "The gentleman's time has expired." But nobody stopped talking. Then came a dramatic procedural move. The congressman began submitting multiple documents into the official congressional record. Fully redacted FBI forms, witness statements, news reports, letters demanding transparency. One by one, he claimed these documents proved the DOJ was still hiding critical information from the public. One document allegedly included statements implicating Les Wexner. Another reportedly showed identifiable victim images accidentally released by the DOJ. Another was a letter demanding federal officials stop withholding Epstein-related evidence. The congressman framed it as proof that even insiders believed information was still being hidden. And then came another explosive claim. He submitted a list of 17 individuals who had allegedly resigned over disputes connected to the Epstein files investigation. The implication was devastating. According to him, internal conflict inside federal agencies had become so severe that officials were walking away entirely. Whether those claims ultimately hold up or not, the political damage was already done. Because millions of Americans watching online weren't focused on legal technicalities. They saw chaos. They saw screaming. They saw accusations of corruption. And they saw federal officials struggling to explain why so many files remain hidden. The Epstein scandal has always existed in a strange space between conspiracy theory, criminal investigation, elite power, and public distrust. And hearings like this only deepen that distrust. For years, people have asked the same questions. Who knew what? Who was protected? Why are so many names still hidden? And why does every attempt at transparency seem to create even more confusion? This hearing didn't answer those questions. If anything, it made them bigger. Because instead of clarity, Americans watched another explosive confrontation where both sides accused each other of manipulation, political theater, and dishonesty. One side claims the DOJ is protecting elites. The other claims politicians are weaponizing victims for political gain. And caught in the middle are survivors, investigators, journalists, and a public desperate for answers. The hearing eventually collapsed into procedural arguments and interruptions before lawmakers recessed for votes. But by then, the damage had already spread across social media. Clips of lawmakers yelling, red-handed, accusing officials of cover-ups, and fighting over the Epstein files instantly exploded online. For supporters of transparency, the hearing confirmed their worst fears. For critics, it looked like another example of political grandstanding surrounding one of the most sensational scandals in modern history. But one thing became crystal clear. The Epstein story is not disappearing. Not politically, not publicly, and definitely not online. Every new document, every redaction, every congressional hearing only fuels more suspicion. And until the public believes the full truth is finally visible, the controversy surrounding the Epstein files will continue haunting Washington for years to come. Because in America today, sometimes the biggest scandal isn't what's inside the files. It's who controls what the public is allowed to see.